Hello and welcome to a new episode of Everstate's Go to Master Show Season 3. We converse with RevOps and GTM leaders from some of the most successful companies today and learn from their unique stories. Joining us today is Matthew Haddad, Senior Manager Commercial Operations at Werfen North America. Thank you for being here today, Matt. Could you please share a little bit more about yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Shafiq. I really appreciate the opportunity. So especially as like an opportunity here to offer my view of commercial operations in a career path perspective. It's definitely one that I certainly could not have picked from a college minor or major list when we start out in our college endeavors or even non-college endeavors. But I've been fortunate enough to work with many individuals in many departments over my career, 20 plus years in this space. To be quite honest with you, it's one of those things where, I started out in FP&A, like many finance and economics folks, and you kind of find your inner voice. And that inner voice led me to the commercial or sales operations departments, where I've exceeded my expectations and what I can do to help drive go-to-market planning, compensation design, business case development, and even managing seed capital. A little bit different than commercial operations as it is, but I think it's important because commercial operations individuals really are that Swiss Army knife, if you want to talk about a well-known brand, across any organization. And then obviously in my spare time, as you can see behind me, the word ski is over my shoulder. I love traveling around with my family, and I love being on the water sailing or in the mountains skiing. So that's where I really can recenter myself for all that we have going on in the commercial operations space.
That's awesome. I mean, from the skiing to water sailing to FP&A, I think it's a wholesome profile altogether.
Very much so.
Throughout your career journey from finance to fidelity investments to commercial operations at Werfen, North America, how do you think your financial background actually shaped your approach to commercial operations?
Shafiq, a great question. So I've actually had this conversation with many folks recently. And one of them has asked, where do you see that finance and economics background really shaping what you're doing today? And really, it comes down to two things: good financial discipline and good data management. So if let's take both of these in pieces for a minute, okay, if we can. Right, finance, numeric net values all the time. You're looking to see how you perform from a P&L, what your revenue looks like, what your expenses look like. But ultimately, you need to make a decision based on hard numbers. And that's where that finance background and even accounting background really, I think, helps folks in this space tremendously. Um, if you've got a good financial background and maybe not the formal financial education, that should never be a deterrent, right? You don't need that. You just have to be good with numbers. And data is the other piece of this. So with data, every financial decision that we make, whether it's our personal lives or even in our professional lives, we have to make a decision based on what's in front of us. And you have to be inquisitive about the data. Is the data accurate? Is the data being managed properly throughout? Why are these financial numbers coming through? What does that mean? So it's always about unpacking the why. So I think that's where the finance piece and what my early career at Fidelity did for me is to allow me to understand how to peel that onion layer back, layer by layer. We've heard that analogy, all of us have. And if you don't think and you don't have that creative or curious side to you, I think sometimes that can hold you back. And I've seen folks get frustrated, and I've helped folks coach them through those moments, and they realize that they do need to be more adaptive and more open. So they have been very grateful for that after we've had those conversations. And I myself have had managers who have reminded me that's why I'm in this space. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be asking, and that's how we in commercial operations, revenue operations, sales operations, help our business executives make decisions that are going to impact us for the long term.
That's so true. We need to be asking. I think that holds true for any domain for that matter. And with you building commercial operations across multiple industries, What unique challenges did you actually encounter in implementing sales compensation and commission systems in medical diagnostic space at Werfen that differ your experience in tech and financial services?
Yeah, so another good question. So I think one of the key things here is that for us in this space, and for me personally, one of my biggest areas is that this has allowed me to really grow as an individual, to continue to expand what I can provide for value to the organization. Like, we all want to come to work every day and we want to contribute, we want to do well, we want to bring, a good life back to our family members and for ourselves and have a moment of reward and know we're bringing value, every day. And I think that's important for all of us, no matter what we do and how we design compensation plans, right? We're designing a compensation plan and territories for our field partners, those that are going out there, they're interfacing with the customers every day, whether it's an inside sales role, whether it's an outside sales role, whether it's a marketing team that needs the data, they want to understand what motivates those out in the field. It's a lot different than those who are inside, who are working through financial metrics, who are working through IT design projects. There's different motivations. So I think for me, that's what really helps me in this space is that compensation plan design has to be very unique and it's got to be well vetted, right? We've got to think about what is the product that we are bringing to market? How do we want to bring that product to market? And I'm not talking about the marketing, the social media campaigns or the industry campaigns or industry events that we're going to attend. It's more about, okay, when all that funding dries up and we have just our field partners out there, how are they going to go get our customers? Where are they going to go get our customers? Do we have enough people in the field to hit those numbers that are going to drive the manufacturing process with our manufacturing partners? So to me, that's where it comes down to. If we have a 500 unit target for the year, how is that 500 units going to get dispersed? Do we have our people positioned globally or nationally in the United States and like in Canada, in the North America markets to go and sell those products where they need to? So I think that's where it comes down to, Shafiq, is that we as professionals in this space should think about the end-to-end process. So I think that's the other piece of this with commercial operations for me is that we have to be good end-to-end process thinkers, right? Everything we do has a process. Does the process today work well? And if it doesn't, when is that moment where we can pause that process, unfreeze it, make the implementations that we need to change the process, and then refreeze the process so that it continues down a path of prosperity? And I think when we do compensation plan design right now in this organization, we do it in the fall for next year. Most organizations that I've worked with, that's kind of when we're doing these compensation designs. And our go-to-market for a territory or deployment strategy happens at that same time as well. So that's our moment to unfreeze the process, design the new one, and implement on January 1. So that's kind of really for me where it all comes together. It's the most fun time of year. And if you're a big holiday person, right? It's the craziest time of year. You got all these holidays, you got this compensation design. I mean, you're definitely running and gunning at that point in the year. And I think that's what's great about it is no day is the same in this world.
Yeah, got it, got it. And on top of it, coming back, is there anything unique that you encounter, especially in medical diagnostic space at Werfen, that comes on top of your mind?
Yeah, great follow-up. Thanks. The uniqueness for medical diagnostics is that it's a very heavily regulated industry, right? We love to bring new products to market all the time. The other medical diagnostic companies that I worked for, there's a lot of other industry guidelines that we have to go through. There's a lot of industry guidelines today we have to go through. There's a lot of government oversight we have to go through in every facet of the globe. So you can't move things to market super quick, right? This is not the tech sector where we can deploy a new update on your phone
Correct.
like that without regulation. So the speed to market is really where it's unique, right? So we may have a new product in the pipeline. We may want to think about where it's going. when it can be deployed, but there's all these thoughtful, methodical checks and balances we need to go to before we get there. So that's the real uniqueness to the whole compensation design and go to market. And I think what I've noticed in my career is that when we speed those processes, we usually don't have the best outcome.
Mm.
When we have a slower rollout, which is can be, for some it can be painful, but it gives us an opportunity to work through the hurdles, right, initially, and then we can have a much better outcome for our sales partners, for the company's bottom line, and for the long-term success of the product in the marketplace for the ultimate end goal, which is the patients. So in the medical diagnostics devices space, everything we do internally impacts your neighbor, my family, your family. It really has a tangible outcome.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a, wisdom in a nutshell when you spoke about, how slow and steady actually, pay for better results. And, taking a cue again from your professional experience, Matt, like, how have you observed the evolution of sales operations to revenue operations and then commercial operations? And why should professionals in the space actually not feel pigeonholed?
Yeah, I think it comes right back, Shafiq, and this is a great one. It comes back to that challenge, right? Don't ever feel that you're not going to be challenged in this space every day. Don't ever feel that each day is the same. I think it always changes. So I've never felt pigeonholed in that I'm only good in one area and that my specialty is here. If you like specializations, all day, go find that specialization, right? And in commercial operations today, the way I look at the world, there are definitely areas where you can specialize, whether it's, data visualization specialty, whether it is compensation plan design specialty, whether it is sales enablement and admin specialty, sales training, field training, field support. There are specializations in that area, which I think a lot of folks really succeed with. And I've seen that today, but not one has said to me, and I've never felt this way, that I'm never going to advance my career because I just don't, I feel like I've been cast into this role or pigeonholed into that role. So I think for me, it's dynamic. You have to have an ability to work across business units. You have to be able to navigate through a matrix environment very, very quickly. And you have to be able to build those relationships with folks as well. So I think really what it comes down to is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you're not somebody who does that well, and believe me, you don't start out doing that well, right? So you don't naturally do that. If you've tried it, great. Kudos. Think about it for yourself. Like, how did I do? Am I okay with this? Or do I need to think about it in a different grain and say, you know what? I can do better. I can be uncomfortable more. I can get uncomfortable more, and then this might motivate me. But some of us internally right in here, it just doesn't sit well. I've had that early in my career. It was the right company, wrong role. So I found a new opportunity within the company, and that felt better. Because I was constantly making myself uncomfortable, and that was good. So I think that's the thing about sales ops, rev ops, commercial ops. You're bouncing around. Terminology will change. The function might stay the same. So I would say to those looking for career advancement in this space, when you're looking at companies and you're looking at job postings, don't focus on sales ops or revenue ops or commercial ops only in your search. Broaden your horizons because it might be the details that you're not able to see on the surface that are going to tell you exactly how that role is really structured. And I feel strongly about it that each of these roles is dynamic. They change. At the end of the day, they drive business decisions, and you're going to drive the company's overall performance and outcome very, very highly, and you're going to become looked at as a trusted advisor and consultant within the company.
That helps, yeah. And I really loved becoming comfortable being uncomfortable. But then you also mentioned about your approach, looking at everything with data and numbers and allowing numbers to drive decisions instead of intuition more. So now, how do you balance both of this, data-driven mindset on one side and then the creative strategy development on the other side, managing both in commercial operations? How do you, do that?
Yeah, so I chuckle at this all the time, right? Because it is a balance. I have a good relationship with my marketing peers, and I always say to them that early in my educational career, I took a few marketing classes and I learned how to market a little bit. But I'm not a marketing professional, so the creative side of me is a little challenged to come out. So, but when it does, it's amazing what can happen because you can support the creative with the data, and that's I think the blend, right? So while it does sound intuitive to many, allowing the data and number to drive decisions, especially those of us who come from this financial background, as I mentioned earlier, but it's not simply the case for everyone. And here's why, right? Most of us are afraid of data because either we don't understand how it can be leveraged for good or bad, right?
Correct.
Decisions because we're nervous. What is it going to tell us? We don't understand it enough. Or the other side of the coin is we just don't want to be exposed for knowing less than what we already do. Like, do we think we know it or do we really know what's going on? Um, One of the things is that we're afraid. I know I myself am like this. Most listening to this podcast are probably the same. Is you may be afraid to make a bad decision and the data proves you made the bad decision, or the data proves you made the wrong decision. In that case, yay for us, we made the right decision, but we're nervous because we just don't know enough. So I think that's the balance, right? And the example I give you is you would go to invest in a new software to optimize sales, say a new CRM, and the decision maker evaluates numerous vendor proposals, right? You make the determination based on some hard numbers in front of you. Look at the upfront costs, maintenance, time saved. Oh, all this is great. It looks phenomenal. But then you go to implement and the user experience just falls flat. And then you hear from your customers that it's just not working the way it was presented. So you spent all this money, you thought you saved all this time, but it didn't have the outcome. It's kind of hard to balance, right? Because on paper it looked great, but in practice it's not working out. So you're seeing that folks are spending more time. So the creative piece of going with that new software with the hard decisions, they don't really stack up. So it's a little challenging, but I think you have to continue to look at the hard data, let the hard data guide your decisions. And then that creativity, that strategy development, that's where we ask the why. And the more we ask the why and why is the data pointing us in this direction? And we go, well, if the data is pointing us in this direction, it must mean it's the right one. But take a moment and pause and go, but is it the right one? Can we look at it a different way? And if we look at it a different way, even compensation plan design, even when we look at going to market with new products, even when we look at designing and implementing a new CRM, let's take the moment and ask the why, get creative, continue to ask those, is the strategy aligned? Does the data now support the strategy? And vice versa. And if we do that, I think every commercial operations professional can go to bed at night knowing that they've done their job to the best of their ability and allowing the company to succeed for the future. So I think that's where that balance comes in. And it is challenging to step away from a data-driven mindset to creative all day. It's very challenging. I myself cannot draw to save my life on a piece of paper. I'm a horrible artist, but the more I challenge myself to become a better artist and support it with solid data, then I think the overall outcomes for the organizations that I'm with is that much better.
Gotcha. And since you mentioned about the ability of reading the data the right way, now that we have so much data and with the way AI is continuing to transform such business operations, are there any areas where you've already implemented AI solutions in your work, and what potential do you see for AI to further enhance in the space and reading data for betterment?
Yeah, so Shafiq, great. great question about AI. I think for AI, it's interesting because I feel that folks are nervous about AI. Is it going to take my job? I'm of the opposite. I say bring it on. How can it help me? I don't know the answers. I don't have all the educational background from a technical perspective to code some data visualization tools, but what I use AI for is to help me learn. So I use AI as a learning tool, and in our practice today, we've used AI to help us optimize workflows and work streams, stuff that used to take a lot of time and a lot of manual hours and prevented my team and myself from getting to hard analyses. We've automated that through the use of AI. And it's been very successful. It's taught everybody how to do their job a little bit differently. And to my earlier comment about getting uncomfortable or being uncomfortable, we have absolutely done that. Every single one of us got comfortable being uncomfortable in order to adopt AI in our daily practice and start to use it more. Now, it took a little bit of time, don't get me wrong, because we had to understand how to ask it the right questions. And, do you use the free trial that's out there or do you pay the subscription? And, well, let's make sure we don't give too much away. And, you got to be smart about, confidential information these days. But we definitely looked at it and said, let's adopt it slowly. Let's see what it can do for us. And I think that's the thing I would tell the listeners. Adopt AI in a robust way and, do it so that it can improve your life. Don't look as though it's going to take away your livelihood. So I look at it for guidance. I look at it to find ways to scale the organization. We're trying to do more every day with less. You've always heard that cliche, right? AI is your way to do that. And so I would say embrace it. Don't be afraid of it. And, just be mindful of where you're bringing AI into the fold. And, the creativity piece we talked about with data, that's a great area to try to use AI to help you validate what your assumptions are and see what it can do to crowdsource, some sort of devil's advocate approach for you as a sounding board.
I think the listeners would concur on this piece, particularly about the AI. And
Yeah.
are there any specific resources, books, or podcasts that you would recommend for someone looking to scale their career in sales ops?
Yeah, so aside from this one, which I find very valuable every day, so I applaud yourself and the entire team for putting this together. This is fantastic, especially in this space. I'm a big fan of the Harvard Business Review podcast and the magazine. Now, I know the magazine's a little old school. I'm a little old school. I like my paper. But I think the podcast, there's a lot of good ones out there. For women in the workspace, in this space, there's a lot of podcasts geared for women. So I've actually encouraged my wife to look at it and listen. She's done that a little bit and for her career. I like the ideas on the Harvard Business Review podcast. So I think it's a great resource to start with. The TEDx's are always great to listen to. I'm a person of a podcast. I love 30 minutes, 45 at the max, an hour. Okay, fine. That's entertainment. But I think the biggest thing is look at the LinkedIn groups, focus on business analytics and operations. Look at leadership development, look at, AI, in those chat forums but just be mindful of what you're joining and what you're listening to and, who is putting that content together. And I think the more resources you look at, the more you as a individual will be able to find a good single or multiple voice source to help guide you in your career. And I think that today in today's space is we need to look at many voices to help us get to where we need to be and allow us to make those decisions for ourselves. I think we sometimes forget that we are our own self and that we need to make our own decisions, but take in viewpoints from different angles. I think that's the most important thing with all these books and podcasts. There's one book that I liked reading. It was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep. And if you've heard that podcast, and unfortunately that individual I heard ended the podcast, but it's really a good one to just give you a moment, take a breath, and sometimes you just have to not give a bleep. Think about it before you do that. But sometimes in life, it's worth going down that avenue.
Indeed, what? Yeah, yeah. And what would you advise our listeners who aspire to excel in the field of sales ops? Maybe three.
Yeah, so three key pieces, right? Just be curious, strive to be better every day, better than we were yesterday, better than the day before that. And never sit back for the opportunity to present itself to you. So I've been using this a lot with people I've been talking to recently is go get the brass ring. So here's the analogy. You're on a carousel and the brass ring is out there. And we've all done this as kids, hopefully, or not, maybe later in our lives, which is fun, right? It makes us a kid again. Just reach out, go try to grab that brass ring, and don't stop. And I think that's the ultimate thing, right? And when we stop, we get to be complacent in our lives, we don't find value for ourselves. And that's so important today is, it's easy to pick up the phone and look at social media and you just kind of go down this rabbit hole. But is that bringing you the value that you want at that moment? Sure. Is it going to bring you the value for your life overall? Maybe. But there's so much to live for out there. Don't live it as much on social. Go out, experience, go find that brass ring out there in your life. And if you find it on your phone, awesome. If you find it on the computer, an old school guy like me, fine, great. But if your brass ring is going out and traveling the world, then go do that. Be curious every day about what you're exploring. Be curious every day at work, and go get the brass ring in your career. Don't be afraid. Network. Ask people to make introductions every day. Within sales ops, within commercial ops, within marketing ops. You never know what door might open for you until you go ask and be curious and look to be better than you were the day before.
Well, that brings us to the end of this insightful episode of Go Masters. Big thanks to Matthew for sharing his experience and valuable insights. Remember, you can tune in every week to learn more from our game changers driving hypergrowth companies across the globe. Go Masters is brought to you by Everstreet, your trusted partner for transforming the way businesses handle sales compensation. I'm your host Shafiq, signing off. See you there.